It was the roaring 20s, and the lively beats of Louis Armstrong could be heard pouring out of venues filled with people eager for the thrill of jazz and illegal alcohol. Amidst this glamour and progress, the lives of Ferdinando Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti would intertwine irrevocably, and their innocence would be put to question. The methods that were used to determine their culpability would incite nations in the years to come, and reveal a dark side of America that continues to bear heavily on our history today. But before their names became commonplace, Sacco and Vanzetti lived lives typical to those of any American immigrant. Sacco and Vanzetti were both Italian immigrants who came to America when they were only 17 and 20 respectively. Once in the United States, Sacco worked his way to become a shoemaker. Vanzetti, however, tended to work odd jobs, such as a pastry chef and fish peddler. Both men became involved in anarchistic activities such as attending meetings and defending other immigrants who had been wrongly charged of murder. Vanzetti, who was interested in political philosophy, read an anarchistic newspaper, Cronaca Sovversiva, which Sacco wrote for. Both men fled to Mexico to escape the draft. They came back to Massachusetts in 1920, and upon returning, Sacco changed his name to Nicola and Vanzetti became a fishmonger. Sacco and Vanzetti were both ardent anarchists, though it was an unfortunate time to be a radical in America. After World War I and the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia, a nationwide fear of communists, socialists, anarchists, and other groups swept across the country and took hold of people's rationality and democratic thinking. Police officers were granted the right to form unions by the American Federation of Labor, and thus went on strike to improve working conditions and wages. Police Commissioner Edwin Upton Curtis denied police officers the right to form a union, and so the union members consequently wreaked havoc on the streets of Boston for 2 nights until the state guard intervened. Similar to the Seattle shipyard strikers, the police were viewed by people and media as agents of Lenin and communists. Further strikes increased the frenzy and fear of the Reds, as well as a series of 8 bombs that exploded simultaneously in 8 different cities. The explosion that erupted in Washington, D.C. was meant to kill Attorney General Palmer, but he was unscathed, and only the bomber, an Italian-American, was killed. Outraged, Palmer initiated and led the Palmer Raids, an attempt to arrest all radicals, communists, and anarchists. Palmer, with the assistance of the Justice Department lawyer J. Edgar Hoover, gathered extensive information and intelligence on suspected radicals. However, the ensuing arrests violated the civil liberties of thousands of Americans. The strikes, raids, and hysteria led the American people to succumb to the notion that all left-wing groups were evil and anti-American. The fear of the masses allowed innocent people to be jailed for expressing their political views, thus setting the stage for the Sacco and Vanzetti case. On April 15, 1920, in North Braintree, Massachusetts, Parmentier and Baradelli, a paymaster and a guard, were shot and killed by 2 mysterious men who stole 2 boxes containing the payroll of a shoe factory. This payroll ended up amounting to more than $15,776. It was suspected that the robberies were used as a financial fund for later bombings, such as the Wall Street bombing of 1920. On April 16th, the Federal Immigration Service contacted the police chief about Galenist and anarchist Ferrucci Caucci, who had been arrested 2 years earlier. His deportation was postponed to April 15, 1920, the day of the incident. The police were sent to Caucci's house, where his housemate by the name of Mario Buda claimed that Caucci did own a gun, but when they searched, nothing was found but a manufacturer's technical diagram for a model 1907.32 salvage automatic pistol, which happened to be the same pistol used to shoot Parmentier and Baradelli. Buda also claimed that he owned a 1914 overland vehicle, which, based on the tracks found near an abandoned Buick, were linked as a possible second getaway car. The 2 impounded cars were held at a garage, and owners were told to inform the authorities when someone came to pick them up. This is where Sacco and Vanzetti first became involved in the case, because they, along with Buda and his friend Riccardo Orciani, came to pick up the car. Buda claimed that Sacco and Vanzetti were 2 of his best friends in America. Yet, when the police were alerted, Buda and Orciani fled to a motorcycle and Sacco and Vanzetti took a streetcar that was later tracked down and they were arrested. Judge Thayer was placed in charge of the trial, a man renowned for his anti-radical beliefs. Both Sacco and Vanzetti were questioned extensively on their political views, which were irrelevant to the case, and jurors were swayed more by Sacco and Vanzetti's identity as Italians and anarchists than by the actual evidence that was presented. The defense lawyers made 8 separate motions for a new trial, yet each time they were denied by Thayer. Even when in 1925 the convicted bank robber Celestino Medeiros admitted to participating in the murders, appeals to the Massachusetts Supreme Court were ignored because the court claimed that only the presiding Judge Thayer had authority over the case. In 1924, Thayer said to a fellow lawyer, "Did you see what I did to those anarchistic bastards the other day? I guess that will hold them for a while. Let them go to the Supreme Court now and see what they can get out of them." Ultimately, both men were found guilty. They spent 7 years in prison while their lawyers appealed in vain. Despite many public protests and petitions, both men were executed by electric chairs on August 24, 1927. Sacco and Vanzetti did not, however, die unnoticed. Throughout their 7 long years in prison, protests and outrage erupted across the world. Thousands of workers rallied and protested their convictions, and bombs exploded at the American embassies in Paris and Buenos Aires. Demonstrations in Germany were so violent, 6 people were killed. The main cause of upheaval was not so much the conviction of 2 innocent men, but rather the justice system's acceptance of Judge Thayer's bias and lack of impartiality to anarchists. This revealed a major flaw in America, a country prized for its high standard of democracy and equality. Consequently, 4 months after the executions, the Massachusetts Judicial Council recognized the flaws in the trial and sought reform. The council called for the Supreme Judicial Court right to review a judge and a trial when the fairness of both are in question. This reform was significant because it established that one man alone could not have all the power in a capital case. Another inadequacy that arose in the trial was the Supreme Court's powerlessness to stop Judge Thayer's rejection of all the motions for a new trial. With the proposed reform, the court would also have the right to order a new trial if they were determined it to be necessary. Although it took many years for these reforms to be passed, they were finally adopted in 1939. The question of Sacco and Vanzetti's guilt still troubles the world today. Recent investigations suggest that Sacco really was guilty, while Vanzetti was innocent, or that they both were guilty. Still others uphold the belief of their innocence. However, this case does not just continue to live on because of the ambiguity of Sacco and Vanzetti's innocence. As the author H.G. Wells pointed out, the guilt or innocence of these 2 Italians is not the issue that has excited the opinion of the world. Europe is saying what it thinks of Judge Thayer. This business of trying and executing murderers as Reds or Reds as murderers seems to be a new and very frightening line for the courts of a state in the most powerful and civilized union on earth to pursue. America undermined the concepts of democracy and equality. Sacco and Vanzetti became and remain symbols of all innocent people convicted for political beliefs. They left their mark not only by the rise of anarchism in the subsequent years, but also by their legacy that perseveres in a world where the fairness and objectivity of the American justice system is still questioned today.
2 good men a long time gone. 2 good men a long time gone. Sacco and Vanzetti are gone. They left me here to sing this song.